Thank you so much, Cindy, for the intro. It's such a pleasure to be here today and get a chance to speak with you all. And we're honored to be a part of this webinar here to kick off the month of February. But yeah, so Vice President of Product at LineLeader. I've been with LineLeader for a little over 4 years now. It's been an absolute pleasure to work in this industry and to work on the software side and the software side that's serving this industry. So today, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking through our annual benchmark study, and hopefully I can bring some great nuggets that we've learned that you can take back to your business and your practice and implement from there. So really looking forward to the hour we have together today. So let's talk a little bit about the report, and Cindy teed this up as well. So what are you looking at today? Where do we get this? We don't just make it up, right? We look at a lot of different imports, a lot of different inputs to understand what's happening in the industry. We're very fortunate to have a great customer base across the early education space, really across the US and even globally. So we'll look at data from our customer base and our users and the trends we're seeing across our product suites. And we also like to do some survey feedback across the entire landscape of early education, from directors, from owners, from operators, from teachers and staff, right? And we'll see almost 20,000 different locations across the United States involved in those responses, driving feedback that we're capturing all throughout the year to get a pulse on our industry and our operators, which is really, really important. So we'll look across those two huge data sets and start to find trends, right? Where are we heading? Where is our industry moving? How are our users feeling? And what's the data saying? What's the data actually showing? And that's how we get to this report today and highlight what are the most important things we're feeling and seeing in our industry from our operators. All right, so we'll quickly go over the agenda. There's kind of going to be four key areas we look at. One, we'll start off with what are some of the top challenges for childcare providers? We'll see if this resonates with those of you on the call here today, right? What are some of the top challenges we're feeling as a collective as we head into 2024? What are some key findings from the benchmark report itself? And then what are some of the biggest takeaways from the benchmark report? So we'll start off talking about some findings from our providers. What are some challenges as we head into 2024, right? What are some key findings from the benchmark report itself? And then some takeaways that we can leave with to kind of marinate on as you go forward and jump off here today. All right, so let's start off. Top 3 challenges for 2024. Top 3 challenges when we went and talked to the whole entire industry of early education. These were the 3 challenges that folks came back and surfaced and said, this is what we're really focused on in 2024. Offering effective curriculum and activities, right? I don't see faces today, but hopefully there's some nods going on screens that are reading through this and saying, yeah, curriculum's huge. Curriculum's hugely important, right? This is what differentiates us as providers. This is what we're able to sell to families who are interested in our care. This is why their children come to us, right? Because of our great care and because of the curriculum we offer. That's going to be super important. And it makes sense that folks, address that as maybe a challenge. We want to have really strong curriculum and activities. It's always something that's going to be at the forefront of what we do in early education. Achieving enrollment goals. Something we know pretty well at LineLeader, right? That's a core tenet of what we do on the software side. So we hear about that a lot. Right? Achieving enrollment. Even if we talk to our customers, we heard this even more so towards the end of last year, right? We did so well as an industry over the last 4 years with enrollment, even through the craziness. Think back to 2020 and COVID and how scared for those of us that were in the industry at that time were for enrollment, but it was okay. We were actually okay. We were strong. We were validated. We knew childcare was essential. We knew early education was essential. But as we look to the end of 2023, right, the back half of last year, we're starting to see some trends pop up, right? We saw that enrollment was maybe not as healthy as it had been in 2022. So as we go look at 2024, people are saying we want to achieve enrollment consistently. We don't want to have to worry about filling spots, right? We want to have high enrollment because that's ultimately how we keep our businesses profitable as well. And if we bring them in the front end through enrollment, we have to retain them, right? 62% of respondents saying we want to make sure we're retaining our existing families. This is a challenge. This is tough too, right? You're not just done when the parents fill out the registration packet and say, I'm coming in and I'm taking my spot. No, that's when the work just starts, right? That's when you all do your absolute best work when families enter in care. Retention is hard though, right? Retention is hard. There's so many options. Parents have different options with what to do with care today, whether that's just competitors in your area, or whether that's even options outside of care itself, right? Do they want to go into more of an at-home model? We're seeing this all over the place. So retention is absolutely critical. So when we go out to the space, hopefully this resonates. Feel free maybe to throw something in the chat if you're like, oh my God, this is a huge challenge for us in 2024 and it's not listed here. But these were three that we saw were people that were really, really focused on, and that's kind of what we'll look to talk a little bit about today. So we'll look at a little bit more data before we get into some of the highlights, because I do like looking at these responses, right? I think they are important. I think they're a great way for us to kind of empathize with each other and realize, oh man, it's not just me. It's not just me, right? More than half of childcare leaders rank the following important to very important: maintaining licensing, right? So this is always going to be at the top of the charts. We know in our industry, this is so important, right? You want to make sure you're always compliant. So it makes sense that this was the highest rated thing of what is important to very important, right? Important to very important is licensing. Delivering consistent brand experience. This was really, really surprising to see so high on the list for us, right? We were like, wow, we're feeling a lot from the industry about saying we know how important it is for us to share our brand, right? That's what makes us unique. That's why families want to enroll their children with us and stay with us. But this was great to see so high on the list from our industry, from folks coming back and saying it's so important for us to consistently deliver our brand, which makes us who we are. That was fantastic. Managing billing and payments, right? Yes, this is a little bit more on the back end of the administrative side. We want to make sure operators are focusing on curriculum, focusing on growth, focusing on branding, right? But at the end of the day, we have to do this admin stuff. We have to, right? We have to collect billing. We have to find ways to automate. We're going to talk a lot about automation today. That's what we know best on the software side. That's where we can come in and really help out early education, right? Hiring and retaining staff. I've been in this industry for around 5 years now, which isn't any sort of tenure compared to a lot of folks on the call today. But I can tell you, since I started, it's all been about staffing, and it's going to continue to be about staffing. It's critically important, and we know it's critically important. It was maybe a breath of fresh air to not see this at number one, right? So we're starting to still feel some other factors that are super important, like branding and things like collections and payments and automation. But we know staffing is critical and is always going to be incredibly important to our operators, right? Subsidies and financial assistance, hot topic. We would love to see a little bit more support federally, perhaps, to our industry about subsidies. But we know there's still a lot that goes on at the state by state level. A lot of our operators are having children enroll in heavily subsidized programs. And this can be a challenge on the financial operating side as well, right? There's a lot of moving pieces with subsidies. You want to make sure that you're remitting from states the subsidies that parents are getting, right? So we want to, this is key challenge or key important factor that operators are saying, hey, we need to manage subsidies appropriately. We need to make sure we're actually getting the right remittance and we're sending the right data off to subsidies in states. Scaling. We're going to talk about this a little bit today. Our operators want to grow. Our operators want to grow, right? We have a huge, healthy ecosystem of single center operators and multi-center operators. And we know the multi-center ones are growing as well, right? We know there's some really, really large operators in the space, but there's so many of our smaller operators as well, and they want to grow. They want to grow, right? And we love that. We absolutely love that. And how can we empower our operators to grow and scale their business? Capturing and following up with new leads. We talked about this on the last slide, right? If one of our challenges are enrolling families And then our industry is saying one of the most important things we can focus on is capturing new lead inquiry. We're starting to create a narrative here of we need help with enrollment, right? We need help with enrollment. It's not always a focus because there's a million and one other things we have going on, but we're saying it's important to the business. We're saying it's a challenge. So how can we help with enrollment, right? How can we help with enrollment? What tools can we look to adopt to help with enrollment? And then reporting. I'm a bit of a reporting nerd. I love looking at some of the numbers on how the business is operating, especially if we're looking at things like scaling, right? If we want to grow our business, we have to be comfortable looking at some reports, right? We need to understand how the underlying business is operating if we want to grow it. If we want to grow it, we have to understand what our ratios are, right? Consistently in forecasting if we're going to solve staffing as a challenge, right? We have to understand really what our enrollment capacity is and how many families are reaching out to us on a consistent basis if we're going to be able to properly get the right amount of kids in our classroom. So reports are really, really important. And we know that our users are coming back to us. Our industry is coming back to us and saying this is really important to us. So make sure you're kind of thinking through tools that you have to understand your business. All right, so we're going to dive into a couple of these with a little bit more depth. And expansion is still happening. Despite a few challenging different elements, right? It's not always easy to go find spaces to open. Rates are high for those who are maybe looking to take on funding to go do so. As we mentioned, enrollment was a little bit down towards the end of last year. Interest maybe isn't as high, even though it's actually looking pretty good in January. I think we're in a good spot now, but when you looked at last year, so we're seeing some challenging we're seeing some challenging elements in expansion, but people want to expand. Our users want to expand. Our operators want to expand, right? 80% of respondents said they're gonna open up a new location in 2024. I think that's a bit ambitious, right? I love that. I love the ambition we have as a collective here to go and expand, but let's empower our users to do that. Right? If we want to go and grow our business, whether that's from 1 to 2 centers, which is a huge leap, right? Now we're really expanding, going from 1 to 2. Or maybe you're going from 2 to 3, or maybe you're going from 20 to 21. All different ways, all different paths, right? All different challenges. But what we know is there's a desire to expand and scale businesses. Our operators want to take on more, which is fantastic, right? Which is fantastic. So how do we help? How do we help do that? How can you think about doing that? And we're going to talk about a lot today because again, we're on the software operating side. Think about software in your operation, right? Think about all the different software you use to run your business, right? Whether that's on the accounting side, the payroll side, the curriculum side, the management side, what are parents using, right? You talk about having a really important branding experience. Think about how important branding and messaging is as you expand and scale your business too. Now that becomes crucial to really getting across multiple locations. So a lot to think about, but what we do know with certainty is our operators want to grow. So let's empower them to grow, right? Let's go take the best operators in our space and find ways for them to go grow and scale their business. Paperwork. Our entire company was started with a mission of reducing sticky notes in centers, right? So those of you who are familiar with Chuck Gibbs, who founded this company, which was formerly ChildcareCRM before we became LineLeader, he started this whole company with the idea of getting sticky notes out of the front desk of childcare centers. And I know you're probably on the call listening right now thinking, yeah, I'm staring at a couple of sticky notes of parents' names that came in on my desk right now. But that's how we started. That was our mission, was to go and provide software into the space and reduce paperwork, reduce paper, right? There's a lot of things that we still have to do with paper in our industry. And, we said, hey, licensing is the most important thing, one of the most important things. Of course, right? We still have to rely a few different ways on paper, but where can we move away from it? Where can we move away from it? And where can we help automate? Because our users are telling us they're spending, 1 full day per week on paperwork. That's crazy, right? There's ways to leverage technology and software to reduce this. There's definitely ways to do this. And one thing that's really, really interesting is what can we take from the director and give to the parent, right? What can we take from the director and give to the parent? This is something that we think about a lot over here because parents are great users of technology. They are great users of technology. They really are, right? So are there ways that we can take a lot of the paperwork that you have to do at a center level and shift that to something that parents can do and they frankly want to do because they don't want to be doing stuff by hand and paper and pencil themselves. So I love the idea of going to directors in the space and saying, like, what are you doing with pen and paper still? What are the repeated tasks you have to do over and over again? If you could remove something from your weekly, checklist of things to do, what would you love to remove? And so often we're hearing, I'm doing tons of paperwork. Parents are giving us tons of paperwork. We're reading tons of paperwork. We're storing tons of paperwork. Technology can solve these. Technologies can solve these, especially if they're things that we can push back to technology-centric parents that they can kind of lead with, something like doing registration packets. You're going to see some themes as I go through the slides today, and that's good. If you're like, he's repeating this, we're hearing it a lot, and we want that to surface. Brand consistency and enrollment. Think about your brand, right? Every single interaction a parent or family has with you is an extension of your brand. It's when they see your website, it's when they see advertisements, when they see billboards, when they walk in the center, when there are other parents out in local areas that attend your school, they're an extension of your brand, right? Every single thing that touches the web of your business or centers is your brand, right? And the more consistent you can make your branding and your messaging is really going to help with your ability to grow, your ability to enroll, and your ability to kind of build trust within the community as well. So there's so many, this is more than just your website, right? It's everything. It's the phone call that parents are making into the center, right? It's everything that touches your center is your branding. And the more consistently you can get your branding and your messaging out there, right? That's going to help you build trust in your community, build trust in your brand, and help you get to a place where, maybe you can go scale and grow and continue to grow. And it really, really helps with enrollment, right? It really helps with enrollment. There's a lot of reasons that families choose to enroll in care. We know that, right? Curriculum, location, of course, how they feel when they get into the center. But branding's a huge part too. Huge part as well. And if they know and recognize your brand by the time they start looking for care, that just makes you puts you in such an advantageous position through that actual enrollment process. So think about branding, think about brand consistency. And I know a lot of people do like ghost tours, right? They go through the process of kind of like setting up a tour at your own center. Doing things like this can be really helpful. We call it like the parent journey, right? So think about every single touch point that a parent might have with your center, maybe before they enroll or even until the day they withdraw. And if you think about that, you're going to see all of these different touch points where they're engaging with your brand, right? And the more consistently you can say what makes us special, what makes us stick out, what makes us the reason your child should enroll here, make sure that's involved in all those touch points. All right. So we just talked a lot about what are we hearing from our industry, right? What are we hearing from surveying? What are people telling us? What are we speaking up and saying? Now we'll look a little bit into our data, right? What does our data show? If we look across our user base and we maybe take a little bit less of the direct feedback and start to focus a little bit more on actually what we see while we see users behaving. 73% of organizations worldwide are using automation technologies. Okay. So I would again encourage everybody to think like, what are we automating? What are we automating? We get so used to doing things that we've done for a long time. This can be challenging for us, right? We can be resistant to this. We're very used to doing things we've done for a long way, and it works. And hey, guess what? Licensing is the most important concern. We need to be focused on being compliant with licensing. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But our operators want consistent brands. Our operators want to grow. Our operators have challenges with staffing, right? And how do we solve that? We solve that by automating things. We solve that by using technology. We don't have to completely abandon the way that we do and love and know things, but we have to implement software, right? You have to think about ways we can automate tasks. And we are starting to see more and more of the industry do this. This number was absolutely not 73% even 5 years ago, and it's continuing to grow. So again, I love this kind of concept of how can I go to my director, or if I'm my director, maybe even go to other folks within my building and ask, like, what are the things you do over and over again every single week, right? What are the things that we just do every single week? Can we automate them? Can we automate them? Scheduling tours, we can automate that, right? Somebody landing on a website to learn more about your business or your rates, we can automate that. I know a lot of people might push back and say, well, I want to talk to the parents. I want to schedule that tour. I want to be the one to deliver the information about our rates and tell them why it is the way it is and deliver my brand through my voice. You have to find other ways to get your branding out there, because scaling is going to become a challenge if you're not automating, right? You have to give up a little bit. The tour is still always going to be that element for you to show who you are and what your center is and why you are absolutely the best place for their child to enroll with you. That doesn't mean we can't automate the initial outreach parents have. They want that. Parents want that. We know that parents want that. They want to control a lot of that experience. So make sure we're thinking about ways we can automate within our business. And just to highlight this, I touched on it a little bit, right? Marketing automation, that's what I just referenced. We talked about licensing and compliance and management as well. And we look a lot at ratio management, right? And there's two reasons why ratio management is so important, right? One, licensing, right? And two, it's more than that. It's also like for overstaffing. We need to know, of course, right away if we have a ratio issue, and we need to make sure that our teachers are in compliance and we get a right teacher into the right classroom. But we might be overstaffed at times too. How many times we have that conversation? Hey, we have too many staff here today. We frankly do. Like we don't need it. We need to actually de-staff because we don't have the kids to support it. So that's a huge way to automate as well. Not only is it time saving, but that's a raw dollar saving, right? Finance and accounting, we're seeing this a lot more too. Are we automating payments? Like there are very, very few things in 2024 that somebody is going and making a one-time manual payment for. Like I would encourage you to think about like what are parents really, really good at? They are sitting on their phones all day long. Everybody is an incredible user of an iPhone or an Android phone today. Parents mostly are. Not in every demographic, but in most demographics they are. What can we have them do that we can automate, right? Payments is absolutely one of those things, right? Payments is absolutely one of those things. So is engagement. And engagement ties into retention, and we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. So just some other ways to think, how can we automate? How can we automate, right? There definitely are ways. Retaining existing families is a key business challenge. This is a fascinating conversation to me. I love the conversation around retention because it's hard. It's hard what we do, right? We have to work really hard to get families to come and enroll with us. And then we have to work even harder to retain them, right? There's two ends. We can't go enroll a bunch of kids if we're not keeping these families with us, right? And we can't keep families with us if we don't get them to come in the first place. That's a lot. It's hard, right? It's absolutely is hard. But retaining is a key business challenge. So if you sit there and you look at your data, if you look at your reports, If you look at what's happening in your center and you say, retention is hard, you are not alone. Retention is hard for over 60% of organizations, right? We know it's hard. So what can we do to help with retention? What can we do to help with retention? For us, this ties back to branding. It's 100% ties back to branding. If you think about, again, I'm leaning heavily into kind of millennial parents, right? Because a lot of them are, even sometimes Gen Z. We form these connections with brands, and it's even stronger in something like early education. We form these connections. If you can build a connection with a family, that is going to go such a long way into retaining them. How do we build these connections? We got to engage with the families, right? We have to. Like, the more we engage with them, we build this connection and they become a brand ambassador. How amazing is that, too? If we have families in our local area kind of advocating for us, for our center, for what we do, for what our brand does, now we're having people work while we sleep, right? And that's the best. But let's just even take it a step back. What can we do to connect and engage and create kind of this brand loyalty, right? We want to share moments, and we see, hey, you should be doing something like 6 times per day per child. I know that sounds like a lot, but that's what parents want. They pay a lot for care, right? What do they really want to know? They want to know what's happening to their child at the center throughout the day. And this isn't that hard if you're leveraging the right software tools, right? Share these moments, because it allows the parents to create this branded and bonded experience. Automated daily sheets. Yeah, we want to interact with parents throughout the day and show them these pictures and moments and what's happening, but let's make sure we're automating a daily summary as well, because parents are busy and they might just see what's happening at the end of the day. They might not be in the app all day or getting updates all day, right? Maybe we want to do things like call recording, because now on the side of generating enrollment, we can't always pick up the phone. So can we be there to leave this branded recorded message for families that need to get back to us when we're closed and they're calling us later at night, right? And then we talked a little bit about it. Things like automatic payment, right? Things like automatic payment help automate and retain as well. So I love the concept of engaging with families, right? Creating brand consistency, make them a brand advocate. And a lot of these things are going to happen through engaging with your families. So how do we retain? We retain by engaging, right? That's what we see, that's what we hear, and that's what's a big focus for us. We retain by engaging. Nearly 80% of our providers plan to open 1 or more locations. This is big, right? This is a big number. This is a big number, right? Maybe we'll go back and interview these providers in a year and say, hey, did you get it done? It's not easy. This is not easy to do, right? It's not easy to do. Again, whether you have 1 center or you have 50 centers, it's a hard expanding. There's so many moving pieces, right? From finding the land to getting the funding to getting the building and construction stood up and then filling up the center with children, right? With families. But folks want to do this. Folks want to do this. Our operators are telling us they want to do this, right? So what can we do? Whoops, I went backwards there. What can we do? We got to focus on process. We absolutely have to be focused on our business process. If we're going to expand our operation, we absolutely cannot do at 1 center what we're doing at 2 centers. We can't do at 2 centers what we're doing at 5, and we can't do at 5 what we're doing at 10. If we're going to build our brand, if we're going to build our operation, we got to focus on how we're processing, how our process is run, right? So getting back to families immediately is key. If you're 1 center, you can maybe just staff what's going on at that 1 center, right? You can make sure you have somebody there, you can track inquiries, and you can always be there at the front desk. Well, if we go to 10 centers, that suddenly becomes a lot harder, right? That becomes a lot harder. So now we need to think about things like, are we immediately getting back to families through digital touch points? Or are we maybe even getting to a size where we're considering bringing on centralized enrollment, right? Now, if you're 1 center, 2 centers, 3 centers, probably not going to happen, right? You're going to focus still locally on enrolling. As you get above 5 centers, right? As folks really start to expand, we need to now really think about changing our process and maybe centrally enrolling, right? Actually hiring people specifically to help us staff our centers because we've changed. Now we have scale on our side, right? Now we can actually leverage our operation being bigger and change our process. Task automation, we've definitely talked about this, and y'all are going to have to hear me kind of continue to relay it, but it's super, super, super important. You're going to be very, very busy. And you're going to be busy, Frank. This is one thing that's the same at one center and 20 centers, right? You're going to be very busy. So you need to automate, and you need to automate communications going back to parents, and you need to automate tasks for your staff as well, right? If I'm a center director, again, I have so much going on throughout my day to day. How can we, from a corporate or ownership level, help automate tasks for them? So my director doesn't even have to think. So they can just know, hey, I need to pop in this system, whatever it might be, and just know what I have to do. I have to go call these couple of families who are interested. I know I have a couple of families coming in for a tour. I know I have a couple of families who are past due on their bills we need to reach out to. It's there for them, right? Reduce the decision-making for the people you have in your center. And that's done through automating. Standardized scripting and improved training and quality assurance. You maybe can get away with this at one center. I don't even want to say that. Absolutely, this is critical at one center, right? You need quality assurance and training. As you scale, though, this becomes the brand consistency, right? Now we need to make sure what we're doing at one center, we're also doing at the second. If there's something that makes us so special about who we are and why families want to enter into care with us, we need to make sure that that's at center 1, center 2, and center 3 equally. Because it's going to be very hard to make sure that, hey, I could do this really well when I was in the center every single day. You can't be in the center every single day now because there's 3 of them. So what are we doing to make sure that we have this quality assurance through each one of our centers that we're operating and we're scaling to? So a lot to think about here. It's also okay if you're not thinking about opening up a new center. If you're sitting here saying, hey, I got my hands full with the one I'm running, we're not ready to scale and grow, that's fine. Don't think you absolutely have to, but a lot of people do. And we need to think about the processes of our business as we're going to scale because they're going to change, right? Now you're leveraging your size to do things a little bit differently. 27% of childcare leaders survey say their organization spends 7 to 9 hours a week sharing updates with enrolled families. Would love to see how you all feel about this as well, right? We are asking a lot of teachers. It's not easy taking care of children, right? There's so many different things going on throughout the day. Now we're going a step further and saying, hey, not only do you have to run and manage this curriculum, not only do you have to take care of all of the craziness that happens in the day-to-day of a center, not only do you have to deal with, parents who are constantly, wanting and asking questions, you actually have to go provide them all of these different pictures and videos of their kids. That's another thing, right? But we got to do it because it's critically important. We got to do it because it's critically important, and parents expect it. Parents absolutely expect it, right? So if 27% of our childcare leaders are saying we're spending 7 to 9 hours a week sharing updates, how can we shrink that number down? Because that is time we can put back into other areas of the business. And we can do that through a lot of different ways, right? So I would highly encourage you to have some sort of engagement application. There's a lot of them on the market today. A lot of different providers have this software. Make sure you have one. You need one, right? They're this fantastic digital landing space for families. And you absolutely need to have this and make it simple, right? Make sure it's a tool that makes it simple for your staff. Can I do things and let the parents know that, hey, everybody in my Blue Frogs class just did this today. Everybody in, the yellow fishes class did this today, right? We have these easy ways to communicate what's happening back to families, to take pictures, to let parents engage with the pictures. Maybe we don't want parents reaching directly out to your teachers, right? There's different ways to kind of introduce this type of technology without really bogging down your staff, but we're actually reducing friction, right? We're reducing friction by making it super easy to provide a digital landing space about what's happening with your child. You're reducing the anxiety of parents. So they're not reaching out wondering what's happening. Especially, let's think about, our infant parents, right? How think about that, right? You're kind of dropping your infant off for care. How concerned those families can be if you have a tool like this to provide information about sleeping, about eating, about feeding, and you can even provide pictures back to them easily, right? Something staff can easily do and convey. Not only are you helping yourself with licensing, right? You're helping yourself with engagement. So this is like a triple threat, right? We're making sure we're compliant by using technology that's helping us, be compliant. We're building better engagement and retention because we're providing our families with the information they want to see, and we're saving time. We're saving time for our staff so they can go do other things as well. So super important to have some sort of kind of digital space for your parents. We highly encourage this, and we're seeing a lot. We're seeing a lot more of it today. All right, let's round it out. 3 in 5 organizations are using data to understand their business and boost performance. This is definitely one of the next layers to get to, right? I will say not everybody in the industry is scouring over data. Maybe as you get to become a little bit as a larger operator, this becomes more and more important. But we're not a data first industry, right? I'll say it. We're not, right? We kind of lag. It's not. We're primarily focused on what we do best, which is education. But there's huge importance for us using data, and it starts with having a place to capture it. You can't use data when you're writing stuff down on paper. It's not possible, right? We can't aggregate a bunch of paper scattered all over the place. So we also we maybe can't do a whole lot if it's sitting in an Excel sheet. I love Excel. I use it all the time and use it today. But we have a lot of these different touch points, right? We have touch points through enrollment. We have touch points through possibly engagement. We have touch points through parents that are making payments. We have touch points through payroll, right? There's so many different things that are affecting the way we might look at our data, and people are asking to centralize this. There's a lot of software in the space today. It becomes challenging if it's not necessarily talking to each other, or you just got to at least get it in the first place. But we're seeing a strong kind of message from the space that's saying, hey, listen, we're maybe a smaller operator. We don't have all the resources in the world, but we need data, right? So how do we get it? Well, you need to implement some systems that can help capture it. Or maybe you get on the larger end and it starts to change a little bit, but the end result is we still need data. We still need data, right? So everybody in our space is finding different ways they can leverage data to understand their business, but it really starts with capturing it. It really starts with capturing it. So a couple different things we really love to make sure our users have access to, things like capacity planning. We talked a lot about staffing, and this is critical. This is critical, right? So like, do we have the ability as a center director to go and run a capacity planning report to see next week or in 2 weeks or in a month, how many kids are going to be showing up? And do we have the right staff and the right ratios for those classrooms, right? We need to understand this. We absolutely have to understand this. Family engagement tracking. We will continue to pound the narrative that you will get better retention if you can engage more. Retention is engagement, right? So if we're saying this, if we are seeing this, you need a way to track this. Do I have certain staff members who are amazing and they're sending all these great pictures to families and they're posting all these moments and we're getting great reviews from families on what they're seeing happening? And then maybe I have a couple staff that aren't. And yes, it's one other thing to add onto their plate if we can reduce some friction elsewhere, but retention is engagement. So you need a way to see how are you engaging. Billing plans and attendance. We want to audit this too. Are we billing our families accurately, right? Are we billing our families accurately for the days they're in care? Do we have attendance reporting that we're going to use for things like licensing, things like subsidy remittance? Super important, right? We saw that early on. That was one of the really important things we need to know is, are we handling subsidies the right way? Really important to the business. Staff time reporting, this goes into payroll. Everybody handles this a little bit differently, but we need to understand data on our staff and the time they're here, because that's how we pay them, and we want to pay them accurately. And we don't necessarily want to overstaff. We don't want to overpay. We want to respect our employees and our hiring practices, but we need to understand this. We need to have a really reliable way to know when staff when staff are here, so we can payroll appropriately, right? Online payment transactions. Am I getting data about my payments? Can we push people to auto pay? The most important thing, again, I've probably said that too many times, one of the most important things is collecting payments, right? We have to. So can we push our parents to do things like automatic payment, where we're reducing overdue payments and collections? And the best way to do that is getting data on it. Do we know today how many of our paying parents are making digital payments to us? And do we have a way to understand how many are signed up on something like an automatic payment? So we can have confidence that we are going to get our payments made so we can go make payroll, right? Really, really important. And then you can go so much deeper from there. But these are some of the basics that we really, really like to see. And it's really important, right? Especially as you scale. If we're saying, hey, we want to grow as a business, we better have confidence in our data, right? We better have inputs. We better have systems to capture inputs and then gain confidence in the data if we're going to grow, because we need to know, like, what is going to drive enrollments? What do we need to do to drive enrollments? And on the back half, what are we doing to engage with families, to retain families, to capture digital payments? All of these are pieces of the puzzle to help us operate more efficiently and ultimately scale the business. So really, really, really important. There's a lot of pieces here, a lot of pieces to the data puzzle, but I would encourage you to think about that, right? To think about, like, how do we understand our business today? You probably know it really well anecdotally, you know it really well subjectively, but how do we move from the subjective, the feelings, to the objective data for us to actually physically see what's happening in our business? Because that empowers you to make really, really good decisions. So I will keep this slide up for a second. If you have a smartphone on you, you can actually scan this and get a full copy of the benchmark report we produced this year. We produce it every year. Our marketing team does a fantastic job compiling all of these different inputs for us to share what's happening in our industry. What are we seeing? What are we feeling? Right? And we talked through a lot of the highlights today, but go ahead and scan this if you want to. If you want to get more information in the full report with a lot more data points in it as well. It's great, great, great reading. We'll leave this up for a second. Well, I think we'll also probably send this out, so you don't have to worry if you're go running to grab your phone. I think we'll send it out to everybody who's signed up from the attendee side, so you'll be able to grab that as well. And then we are absolutely happy and proud to be here, right? It's really, really important for us to partner with some of the leaders in the space. There's tons of great softwares out there, right? So please go and make sure you're looking at ways to improve the way you operate your business. And it is going to be through introducing great technology. If you would like to look at ours, we are more than happy. Hopefully a lot of you are users today. And we do want to give a little offer back to this community, because it's really, really important to us. And we have a great partnership here. So we do have a great offer going on as well. Again, we'll send some of this information out. If you're not using our services today and you benefit from it, we'd love to talk to you more about it. But would encourage you to just go look out in the space, right? There's tons of great. We're not the only one. We're hopefully the best one, but there's a lot out there. So just think about that. And yeah, thanks so much for letting me talk with you guys a little bit here today.
Thank you so much, Teddy. We really appreciate the time that you've taken to talk to everyone today. I'm going to kind of open it up the floor a little bit for anyone who might have questions for our presenter, either about the benchmark or, anything that you would like clarified. Of course, as he said, we are going to include the link to the benchmark for you to be able to download it in the materials that go out afterwards, along with the recording, and then the offerings for NCCA members. But if anyone has anything, just raise your hand, or you can put the question in the chat so we can address that. And while we're waiting for some responses from our attendees, I'm going to pass it to Cindy Lanehoff, who is our director, see if she has anything that she would like to talk about from today's presentation.
Well, first of all, I would, again, like to thank Teddy and LineLeader for spending time with us today. I promised Mariah would be brief, but for those of you that know me, you know that's hard. And one of the things that I was thinking about, Teddy and Molly, who's also listening in from LineLeader, I've been in the industry for 42 years. And I was thinking about my experiences back in the 80s and even early 90s when there was no technology, and then making that transition. And I will tell you, when you have to first make that transition to utilizing technology, it's scary for those of us that are in my age bracket, which is 65 plus. But once you accept it and utilize it, you never ever want to go back. And I hear a lot that some of our smaller providers do not, want to head in that direction. And I will tell you, I happened to meet with a group in Oklahoma that recently started working with LineLeader, and they gave big kudos to LineLeader on the training and customer service of helping them with the transition. So I thought I would pass that on in case you're, thinking about, moving towards technology. I also know that ratio tracking can keep you in compliance and save you money, because I had ratio tracking tools at the centers I worked in the last 20 years. And ultimately what I found was you would be overstaffed, or we would be overstaffed at some parts of the day and understaffed at others. And the goal is to, have the staff you need and not overcompensate and utilize dollars that you could be using to pay people more if you're working them the hours that are needed for the children and the families. And then two, I've also talked to a lot of people out there that, are thinking about selling their centers. And if they don't have the information, the data that a program like LineLeader can provide you, it's really tough to put a value on your center. So I wanted to just say those are some of the things that come to mind, and it's why we try to bring you technology options, and you'll see, those of you attending our conference will see that too. Okay, thank you all. Remember, you're essential every hour of every day, and never forget that. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Cindy. So if we have anyone in the chat who does have any remaining questions, feel free to put them in there. We'll pass them along to our presenter. But I'm just going to switch gears really, really quick. Our conference, which we've talked about several times since you've been here today, join the wait list. So we have reopened for a select amount of spots. So if you are interested in going to our upcoming conference, which is going to be April 25th through the 27th in Austin, Texas, please go ahead and scan that. I am happy to include the links as well if that does not work for some folks who don't have access to the camera right now to scan that that QR code. I will include that in the information going out later today. But if you are interested, please put your name on that wait list, and then I will go ahead and email you all the information that is needed with the link and the code for you to access that. So I will include that. And then you can go ahead and see our lovely partners and beverage bar sponsors, LineLeader. So if you loved what you heard today from Teddy and want to learn more and have some more face-to-face conversations with the LineLeader team that will be present in Austin, then go ahead and make sure that you did put your name on that wait list so you can meet them in person. They are going to be session speakers as well. So we are really, really elated to have them. So please come on down. For those of you who have already purchased your tickets and plan to be there, we are using Whova as our event management app. It's gone live and it's going to have live updates going on up until April and even during the conference. So that is kind of the general gist of it. You'll be able to network with people ahead of time. We've already had a lot of people make connections ahead of time, so that's really great to see, as well as, network with sponsors and exhibitors. So please take advantage of that and make sure that you do download the app. If you have not yet booked your rooms, also, we encourage you to do that as well. We have about 50 or so rooms that left at that $189 a night discounted price. So that is available until March 25th. That is the cutoff date for booking your rooms. If you do not have them or they end up selling out, those are the only rooms that we will have available at that discounted rate. So please do not hesitate on that. Lastly, we have our Champions monthly call that is going to be next Tuesday. We changed the date, so not to throw everybody off, but it'll be next Tuesday, February 13th at 3 p.m. Eastern. Go ahead and scan that. If you are already registered, then you don't need to add your name to the list. We've got you already included. But if you are new to it, please go ahead and scan that and join us next week. We are trying to make sure that all of our calls are the way that you want them. We do this work for you. So if there is something that you didn't really love about how we've been hosting those Champions calls with our partner, please put that in the survey. We want to make sure that the day, the time, the information that you're receiving is geared towards you, and that we're giving you the tools that you need in order to be an effective advocate for childcare. So the survey is anonymous, so no one's going to come after you if you say something like, I don't like this call very much. That's okay. We need to know, that way we can change it. So please go ahead and put that information in that survey. We really, really appreciate it. And like I already said, after today's session, it will pop up immediately the survey link to go ahead and put that information in to get your continuing education certificate. It'll also be included in the information that goes out afterwards to everybody. So even if you miss it right now, you're kind of in a rush, we'll send it to you, but that is the way that you will get your certificate. Other than that, there will be no certificate being issued. You have to complete that survey and it will spit it out out you. It's okay. It's okay. It's Wednesday. We're halfway through. It's all right. Thank you guys for dealing with me. If you have any questions, email us. We're happy to talk to you, and follow us on social. And that is it for me. If we've got anyone who wants to say anything last, but I thank you all for joining us today, and we appreciate you, Teddy. We appreciate you, everyone from LineLeader. So we will see you next month.